Hello and welcome to Expats on Air. Today we have yet again another special guest, a gentleman named Roy Yo. He's a Singaporean man, an ad man, a creative in the ad industry who lives in China. So Roy, welcome to the show. Maybe
Thank
you
you.
could... Sorry, I cut you off. A little delay
All
here.
right.
Maybe you could introduce yourself a little bit more than what I've already said.
All right. So, okay, I'm Roy. I'm originally from Singapore. I've spent I'm in the ad industry, and I've spent a few years working in South Africa, and now in Shanghai. So I've been in Shanghai for about, oh damn, this is about my 18th year here now. So it's been a while. Um, And yeah, so that's pretty much where I am at the moment. And it's been great so far, this ride, but kind of looking for something different at the moment.
So 18 years in Shanghai.
Yeah.
Wow. So you've seen the transformation, but so you've spent some time in South Africa. So was it kind of a in and out of Shanghai sort of thing? Is that the lifestyle?
No, I moved to South Africa back in 1999. So that was a long, long time ago. And it's a very, very different lifestyle compared to Shanghai. So coming from Singapore, where everything is it's pretty uptight. Everything's by the book. There are just rules everywhere. So moving to South Africa was a complete eye opener. So it was raw. Cape Town is pretty raw. And the thing is, I couldn't get a work permit because they had just abolished apartheid at that time. Nelson Mandela was president, and there was affirmative action going on. So unless I was a brain surgeon, I could not get a work permit. So I was there on a tourist visa, which lasted 30 days. So every 4 weekends, I had to drive 8 hours to Namibia, spend a weekend there, drive back, and then go to work. And I did that for 3 years. Um, it yeah, it kind of grinds you down after a while, but if you told me today I could go back tomorrow, I'd do it.
So you haven't been back to that region since you were working there, though. Is that correct?
No, no, I have not. It's a very insular market. So I went there when I was really junior. That was my second job. I just bounced out of Singapore and went there. So it was easy for me. I was cheap labor. All I had to do was, come up with ideas and execute a lot of other people's ideas, essentially. But I got to know the market really well at that time. And I was quite a bit of a novelty as well. So you don't get a lot of foreigners, especially ones that look like this, rocking up in the marketplace and saying, "Hey, I need a job." So yeah, it's something that I would recommend, especially when you're young and just starting out in your career, to try something different like that. Just do it.
So I'm really curious about the 8-hour drive, the Namibia South Africa trek that you did. What kind of vehicle
Yeah.
were you in? What was the drive like? How was that?
Oh my God. I was driving a really cheap car. It was a Volkswagen Chico. I don't think you get that model outside of South Africa. And essentially, it's like a VW Golf, but frills free. It had nothing. I didn't even have like a stereo at that time when we first got the car. Because I went there with my ex-girlfriend, so she's South African who had been living in Singapore for about 7 years at that time. And I had just left my job in Singapore, and she was like, "I want to go home." So I thought, well, I'm jobless. I got nothing to do. I'd come with you. So, like this dumbass, I just packed my shit and went with her, and it was just insane. So when I found out I had to do that 8 hour drive in this really shitty car, every time I hit about 110 kilometers an hour, the steering wheel would shake. You know, it was noisy as shit, and I was just driving through mostly desert. There was fuck all, and so the most dangerous thing about that drive was trying to stay awake in the middle of the afternoon, right after lunch. Um, and that was it. I killed a couple of birds. And when you get that far north, the only Asian face I saw was a Bruce Lee poster. So every time I got out at some random town or something, I just get stares. You know, I never experienced something like that in my life. So it was quite a novelty. But by the time I got into my sixth or seventh run, you know, I became quite a familiar face because they kind of expected me every month. This dumbass is going to come driving right down, stop at this place for lunch, and you know, we just have a good chat. And it was very interesting because sometimes I would run into these African guys who were actually sailors. They would work on fishing ships and stuff like that, and they would speak Mandarin to me, and it it completely threw me off guard because my Mandarin sucked at that time. I hadn't spoken it in over 10 years, so it was a hell of an experience.
Well, that's pretty wild. So these fishermen,
Yeah.
their work. I guess there's a lot of Chinese fishermen in that region. Can you give
Well,
any insight about like why they speak Chinese? Where did that come from?
yeah, because a lot of the fishing vessels are Taiwanese. So when they stop off in places like by the coast, when they stop off by the coast, they the African guys who used to work on the boats, they had to speak with the local fishermen, you know, the Taiwanese guys. So obviously, they started to learn Mandarin because they'd be spending months on board the ship. So it was pretty rudimentary. I mean, they would get by with like, you know, ni hao and what is your name and stuff like that. But it was still very bizarre to see an African guy speaking the language because that you just don't put those two together.
Yeah, and considering this was what back in the '90s, the late '90s.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
late
so it
90s as well.
wasn't the world it is today, where there's actually quite a few Chinese in Africa, quite a few
Yeah,
Africans in China. You know, this was a different time and pre Web 2.0. You know, pre
yes, pretty
social
much.
media. You know, we had
Yeah.
ICQ back then. Was that what we had?
Oh
You know,
yes, I see
like
cute.
yeah.
Oh my God, you're making me feel old. Yeah.
Well, I'm probably a little younger than you, but you know, I was coming of age in that time, and I had an ICQ account. I had a few of those early Friendster, you know, some of those like pre MySpace platforms.
Yes. Yeesh. I should feign ignorance, but yeah, kind of late for that now.
All right, so you said, you know, back then your Chinese was pretty rusty, you said, but then you spent 18 years in Shanghai. So how's your Chinese now?
Oh, I get by. I mean, I can definitely converse a lot more. I can type in Mandarin now, which really helps. Still can do a lot of cold reading. So, but it was funny. I had not spoken Mandarin in about 12 years when I first moved to Shanghai. And one of my first nights out eating alone, you know, at the end of the meal, I wanted a serviette. So I had no idea what it was called in Mandarin, right? It's just piece of tissue. And I was like, damn it. So I started piecing these words together, and I was like, all right, these words pieced together kind of made sense. So I called the waitress over and I asked her for a sanitary pad. She just
You
turned
mean
bright red and ran off.
like a tampon kind of deal?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah. Next thing I knew, the staff were just standing around laughing, and this guy hands me a toilet roll.
yeah.
Yeah, and no one corrects me for about 4 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
At least they knew what you wanted. They're like, yeah, just give me that sweet, sweet tampon. Come on, guys. And then, yeah, here's your tissues,
Yeah.
sir.
Yeah. Your food's kind of oily. I just need something absorbent. You know?
Ma'am, I'd like to see a tampon, please. Yeah, that's probably yeah that would freak me out if I was a waitress. I think
Yeah. Oh, it's that idiot again. He wants something off menu.
off menu. Damn. Okay, so you're in China, been there 18 years. You've been in Shanghai, but have you spent much time in the other cities or the other regions in China, like out west, or been to the national
No,
parks?
I actually no. I if I had to travel within China, it's exclusively for work. Yeah, the one thing I that really gets to me is just the crowds here. Everywhere you go, it's just so crowded all the time, And yeah, it's when I first got here, we did travel to the nearby cities, and it's just the crowds. It just blew me away. And in my mind, I was thinking every time I go to a different city, it's going to be that crowded. I'm like, yeah, no. So mostly for work. Once in a while, we go to more remote places like Shan, which is just about an hour or two away from here. It's a nice retreat, uh, but other than that, not so much.
All right.
Yeah.
And have you been to Taiwan? Have you spent any time over there?
Not during my time here. I had to do military service back in Singapore. So as part of my training, we had to spend about a month in Kaohsiung. And that's all I saw of it. The only thing I know of Taiwan is the forest, the jungles, and that was pretty much it. So I didn't get to see much of Taiwan. I really do want to go though.
Okay. So you
Yeah.
got like the military training version of Taiwan.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. You know, I used to live there when I was a kid, and I used to dress up in camouflage and go like run around in bamboo forests, just like playing games. I was just like
Right.
an obnoxious little shit, I'm sure, to the farmers. This bamboo was being farmed, and we used to be so mischievous and get chased by farmers all the time. So I have a feeling it was like a similar look and feel to what you had, but just a lot more fun. You know,
Minus the bamboo, yeah.
yeah, minus the drill sergeant, yelling at me for, God knows what. But okay, you're from Singapore, and you got to remind me not to get you in trouble if I push it too much, because there's some internet restrictions in Singapore. I think some people have gotten in trouble for saying things online on YouTube. So if I'm pushing it too much, you got to tell me to stop.
Oh no, no, I mean, it's fine. It's not that militant. Um, I mean, I haven't lived there in well since '99, So uh, a lot of what I know about their restrictions are just from what my friends have been telling me, and what I've been reading in the news. So unless it's specifically targeted against the government, if you're trying to stir unrest or sedition stuff like that, it's pretty all right. It's not as strict as here in China, for example.
Yeah, there's a lot of cliches or stereotypes like when people think about Singapore, when outsiders think about Singapore. And I lived in
Yeah.
Taiwan in the 90s, like I was telling you, and I was a kid and I was in this international school circuit. And there's another big international school in Singapore, the Singapore American School. And I was at
Oh
the
yeah.
Taipei American School. Yeah. So our schools did a lot of competition when it came to sports, but also I don't know, some kind of academic competitions and things like that. There was something called IASIS that our schools were involved in. So news traveled around between these expat scenes in the 90s in Southeast Asia
Right.
and Taiwan. So the big story in the 90s was that kid, wasn't there like an American kid who got punished, who got reprimanded for some bad behavior in Singapore?
Michael Fay. Yeah,
Yes.
that American kid. That oh wow, that was big news around the world. He was just a dick, right? He ran around vandalizing stuff, spraying graffiti on things. He would have gotten away with it had he not sprayed graffiti or vandalized a minister's car. So yeah, that was a little too high
Was
profile.
that was that intentional or was that
I
just
don't
bad luck?
just bad luck.
Oh,
He got a
what a
minister's
dummy.
car. Yeah. And so he got caught. They really hunted him down for that one. So he got caught. I think Bill Clinton was the president at that time. He intervened and asked for clemency. They eventually, you know, uh, they didn't let him go. They reduced the punishment to, I think it was 6 strokes or more. I can't remember, of the cane. And the cane in Singapore, it's you don't fuck around with it, because it's this monster variant that literally splits your flesh with the first hit. So you get cane once,
Yeah.
they'll let you recover. You can't sit on your ass for a month. So they'll let you recover and you go for the next one, split your ass again, you recover, and it just goes on and on until you get all of them. So yeah, they use that as a deterrent for uh, potential young troublemakers, kids who are going to join gangs and stuff like that. So they take them to this place and give a demonstration on a dummy. So the sound alone puts a lot of people off. So they try to use that as a deterrent. But Michael Fay, he got he got the full experience of Singapore law.
Yeah, and you brought up Bill Clinton trying to get like his punishment reduced to whatever. I think if I was president, I would say, okay, don't lock him up over in your prisons. Just send him home. Don't let him come back into Singapore, but do the caning. Let him feel that. Let him learn a
Yeah.
lesson from all this. It'll be a great
Oh yeah,
experience for him to learn not to disrespect people's property like that.
precisely. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, they wanted it. I think they were Bill Clinton at least, or his administration was against the corporal punishment. I don't think they minded if he had to serve a jail sentence, but I think they minded the corporal punishment. But nah, tough luck, man.
Yeah, I think Singapore is a lot more like the world of Starship Troopers. Are you familiar with the 1997
Yes.
film? Yeah.
Yeah, I just watched it again last month. Yeah.
Oh, well, me too. I've watched it recently. It's been on some of the movie channels over here. I'm staying at
Right.
my mother-in-law's house, and they got some premium cable, so they got all the movie channels.
Nice.
Not that you need it. I mean, they could watch Netflix or Amazon, but
Right.
sometimes I just like to tune into some random movie that I don't know anything about, and every now and then a
Right.
classic is on, like Boogie Nights or Starship
Oh,
Troopers. Some
yeah,
great films. But yeah, there's the
definitely.
whole whipping scene in that one, and
Oh, yes.
it always makes me think about Singapore whenever I see that scene. Well, moving on from that, I got a good friend from Singapore, and you brought up
Mm,
like this caning is like a good deterrent for wannabe gangsters or something. And my buddy from Singapore always liked to use this term "ah bang" or "ah
yes.
bung" or
Bing, yeah.
yeah "ah bang." Can you talk
Yeah.
about that? What does that mean? What's the
So,
context?
an Bing is basically a derogatory term for it's more often than not, a kid who has been brought up in a Chinese speaking environment, you know, um, who's a bit thuggish and gangsterish in his mannerisms, very, very rough around the edges. And they are usually associated with being part of a street gang or something like that. So, and it's really funny because I used to do theater back in Singapore, and one of my very first roles was this very huge play about 5 kids who join the military and how they form a strong friendship. So it was this huge comedy, and I had to play the role of Ah Bing. You know, I do not sound like an Ah Bing, so um, but I can ham it up if I want to. But it was actually quite hilarious. And the thing is, they get such a bad rep because they start fights. They get into so much trouble, and people always think of them as uh, insufficiently educated. But they've got when I got to know them, especially as when I was in the army, a lot of my friends, the guys that I got close with, were these beings. They've got the biggest heart, and they always have your back. So it's one of those things like, uh, these big city kids. Not like Singapore is a big city; it's just a bloody island. But all these urbane kids would be about materialism, would be very shallow. But these guys are the more, uh, they're the more deep rooted in community and having each other's backs. So that's the one thing about the Ah Bengs. They are a very funny stereotype. You would not want to mess around with one, but they have fallen into that stereotypical look of what you think a Chinese gangster would look like.
Well, I love this defense of Ah Bing's. This is good. This is the other side of the story. The side of the story I
Yeah,
haven't heard. So Ah Bing's are ride or die kind of guys.
pretty much. You
Yeah.
you do have the real pansy kinds, you know, they just want to be part of a gang to belong in something, and you have the more hardcore guys. So you do have both ends of the spectrum for that.
All right. So
Yeah.
Singapore in general, I mean, we've gone over some of the stereotypes and the tropes. How would you describe it in your own creative words to an outsider, to somebody who's never been or somebody who doesn't know much about it?
Yeah, I've been asked this before, and I still struggle. You know, it's apart from a caricature of a real, you can't compare them to the Triad. They're not that badass, or they're not that big of a scale. So I think it's more like gangster light, a Chinese gangster light, if you may. I can't think of how else to describe that. But the Bing is just exclusive to how we see gangsters in Singapore.
Oh, I just meant Singapore. Yeah, moving on from
Oh,
the Ah Bings.
Singapore.
Yeah, yeah. How would
Right,
you
right,
describe
right.
just Singapore in your own creative words?
Oh, whew, it is. Hmm. It it is a very expensive city. Uh, I don't mean to sound harsh or really really critical of the country, but it's a bit sterile, to be honest. I growing up there, of course, as a kid, it doesn't matter because you're just in your own world. But when you get older, and especially for me, I did not go to university overseas. So a lot of my friends, they at the age of 16, they buggered off to Australia, to the US, to the UK, and they have this world of experience. I never left the country apart from visiting my relatives in Malaysia. I didn't leave the country till I was about 19. So I had very little exposure apart from what I was reading in the newspapers. And when my friends came back, I could actually see a very, very big difference in the way they viewed the world, how they viewed the country. And I realized then, like, shit, I mean, their point of view combined with what I was seeing through the media, like Hollywood and stuff like that, I realized it's very, very stifling to be in Singapore. Very At that time it was still kind of cheap, but now, every time I go back within 2 weeks, I'm like, shit, I'm broke. And it's it's a good place if you're an expat and you've got kids, because
And when you say
you
that,
will be there.
you're talking about that expat package, right? The
Yeah.
executive package, not
Oh
not
yeah.
the not the young gun who's like entry level at Ogilvy or something, intern at Ogilvy. You're talking about the
Oh
guy who was sent from Sydney to Singapore or
yes.
from Los
Oh yeah.
Angeles to Singapore. That guy or
Oh,
gal.
that guy. Yes, for sure. The kids' education's paid for, the apartment's paid for, everything's paid for, and you really do get the good life there. But packages like that, like, they don't come around often anymore.
Oh, I think people
But it's
murder for those now. I think people they're
oh
high
shit,
stakes
yeah.
for those packages now.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. A friend of mine had kind of a semi version of that kind of a package. He used to live in Shanghai, and then he moved to Singapore with his family. He had kind of half of that kind of a deal, and I thought, you lucky bastard. He was living in a pretty nice house up in the East Coast, and yeah, every time I went to visit, I was like, ah. But other than that, if you're looking for something a bit more raw, if you're not gonna find a lot of soul, unless you know where to look, unless you know who to hang out with, because Singapore paints a very, very um, sleek picture to the rest of the world, especially because tourism is such a big thing for us. It has to be sleek, it has to be polished. Even our Chinatown is quite unlike any other Chinatowns you're going to find around the world. I don't even know why we need a Chinatown. But Yeah.
Yeah, and then
So
you got that movie working double time for you too. That Crazy Rich Asians.
yeah,
That's a whole tour. That's a
yeah,
tourism spot, isn't it?
yeah.
That's
I'm
just the
like,
one long.
that's not us.
That's one long tourism spot for Singapore. You know, you got that Marina Bay Sands. You know,
Oh
you got all
yeah.
those key images. Marina Bay, Singapore. Let me pull that up on the screen. So,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
this is epic. It's a crazy looking
It is
building.
epic.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah. And obviously, the casinos there are targeted at travelers, at foreigners. So a local would actually have to pay a cover charge to enter. So, they're kind of discouraging locals from gambling. So, but all you foreigners, come on in.
I've heard about that. Now, the things you've told me so far in the show about Singapore, they're things I've definitely heard from other Singaporeans and from also just other expats who've spent time over there.
Mhm.
Now, you are Singaporean, but are you like Chinese heritage?
I am what they call Peranakan.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically a few hundred years ago when China wanted to do trade with Malaya, at that time it was still called Malaya, what they did was they sent a Chinese princess down to the Straits of Malacca, down to Malacca to marry a Malay prince. So you have this Malay and Chinese mix of royalty, and this is the result. So my ancestors basically came from Malacca, were a mix of Malay and Chinese. So I speak Malay at home to my mother, and her relatives, and it's on both sides of the family. So my dad's mom was also Peranakan. So I'm not completely 100% Chinese, but I just look the part.
So, when you introduce yourself, do you usually tell people that you're. Do you say something like this, like, I'm Malaccan royalty, bitch? Do you ever say anything like that to people?
um, I should try that? No, but I really that should be a great icebreaker from now on.
Yeah, yeah. You just
I'm
see how it
royalty,
goes.
bitch.
You can test it out on certain groups. You know,
Yeah,
you can get on Clubhouse and test it out. You know, you can test different
yeah.
audiences in there. You know, are you on
Hey,
Clubhouse, by the way?
no, no, I'm not.
Okay, it's got so hot
Yeah,
in China in the past like couple weeks. Like all
is it
these
now?
people on WeChat, I'm seeing them all on posting screenshots from Clubhouse, and then it got banned. Of course, you know it was quick,
Right,
inevitable.
of course. They're gonna have some old version of it at some point.
Well, of course. I mean, everybody else
Yeah.
is already copying them. Like I was on Twitter today, and there's this
Hmm.
journalist who's been talking a lot of trash about Clubhouse, named Taylor Lorenz. She was doing a Twitter Spaces meeting, and it's just like Clubhouse, but it's in the Twitter app, and
Right.
it was like the same thing, you know. So I mean, it's almost like stories, you know, like
Right.
Snapchat
Yeah.
stories, and then Instagram stories, and then we finally got to LinkedIn stories. It got a little weird at that point, you know. It got very
Yeah, it did.
strange at LinkedIn stories.
Yeah.
Now they're doing the same with Clubhouse.
Uh damn it. It's always a bandwagon that someone's gonna jump on anyway.
Yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah.
the momentum is going to run. I think there's a lot of excitement about Clubhouse because the exclusivity, you know, all the voices that are on there are these. Whoa, there's celebrities. Whoa, there's big tech titans like Elon Musk on there, and I can talk to these
Right.
people, but they're going to slowly drift away into more private spaces, and people are going to get tired of it. I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But I mean,
Anything
there
with
is a
celebrities, it's just got a very short lifespan anyway.
Yeah, I mean there is a utility purpose with it though. I mean it's like a conference call. It's like a Google Meet,
Sure.
Google Hangout
Yeah.
with no camera, which I like actually. You know, it's just if you
Yeah, me
need to
too.
have a meeting, if this Clubhouse interface was introduced instead of like a call interface, I think it'd be a
Yeah.
lot friendlier, a lot nicer. You know, in an
Sure.
app like WeChat or Facebook Messenger for that matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I'm talking a lot about these tech platforms, social media platforms, and this kind of is adjacent to the industry that you are in, that I'm
Hmm.
also in. But you're on the creative side of this industry, so you're in the ad industry, yeah. and you're
Yeah, yeah.
a creative ad man. How would you describe what you do professionally?
Oh God. Um, so uh, I started out as an art director, so I just kind of sit around. I get a brief from my the account servicing side or the planning side. Get a brief which I work on with my partner, and basically come up with ideas, the best ideas uh, with which to solve the problem that the client has. So, for example, if the client's going to launch a new product, there are certain parameters that we got to work within, and we have to come up with a whole scale of ideas on how to launch that product in the most creative way possible. So, if I want to put that in a nutshell, I would just say, I'm an ideas person who sometimes, have the get the joy of bringing that to life in the ways that I actually envision. Because most times it almost becomes a decision by committee kind of thing. You have this really great idea, and then you have voices coming in everywhere and saying, "No, we can't do this. We can't do that. We can't. You take this out, put that in," and in the end, it just becomes unrecognizable. So there's a lot of pain, especially for a creative, to see that baby, that baby you thought you were gonna have come up with six limbs, four eyes, and nine toes or something like that, and it's kind of painful sometimes. But you just have to learn to roll with that.
Yeah, and that's right. And young creatives out there, if you are masochistic, if you have these kind of masochistic tendencies, maybe the ad industry is right for you.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. If you like to see your ego squashed and broken and chucked under a truck, go for it.
All right, so that sounds really bleak, and I understand everything you're saying there, but I can just imagine people who are not in this industry or not adjacent to it.
Yeah,
They might not know what you're talking about. There's accountant planning people, and they're coming to you with a brief. There's all this jargon there, all these buzzwords that are industry words. So basically, what's happening? Let's say there's a brand like Snickers, the candy bar, and they're
hmm,
like, hey, we need to do some ads, or we need to do some kind of way to communicate our product.
yeah,
So they're going to go to an ad agency and they're going to talk to somebody at the ad agency side. And after they talk to that person at the ad agency is going to go to you and they're going to talk to you about making that creative idea for that advertisement, or it could be a billboard, it could be a banner ad on a website, it could be
yeah,
social media content, or it could be like a traditional TV ad, like a Super Bowl ad.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, they will talk to so the creatives are right at the bottom of that chain. So we are the ones to get the all that information last, because the client would have to tell the agency guys, like the planners, or say, this is our goal, this is what we want to do. We need to make, for example, if it's not Snickers, if it's something else, if we want to rebrand, or we've got a new car, that we're going to launch in this certain market. um, and the agency basically needs to sit down with the client, if they haven't already done that, is to identify the things like the target audience, how premium it is, where it sits in the whole product range. So for example, I used to work on Ford, and you have cars that they have different tiers. You have the small compacts, you have the sedans, the family car, the business car, the SUVs, and the trucks. So you need to kind of figure out where within that category this car would sit, the kind of the target audience that you want to talk to, the regions that you want to address, and they have to come up with a strategy, with a messaging, uh, and when all that is finally decided, they rope in the creatives, and that's when we start thinking about the ideas to see, to come up with something that's actually relevant and on brand.
Yeah, so they have all this audience research. So you finally
Oh
kind
yeah,
of get to know who you're trying to talk to with your creative.
yeah.
And you're trying to find some kind of human insight, some kind of human connection to, whatever the brand or product is and that person. Is that correct?
Hmm, yeah, that's pretty much it. We When I was working on Ford, we used to handle Asia Pacific. So that was it's pretty large. I think there were 13 markets or something like that. And sometimes, you just it's really difficult. If you're just talking about a specific market, for example, when I was in South Africa, you were just that's your audience, South Africans. It's either um at that time we really didn't break down the categories into the colored South Africans, the black South Africans, or the white South Africans. We didn't really categorize it at that time like that. Even it's if it's Singapore, it's going to be just for Singapore. If it's in China, it's mostly for the tier 1 cities, unless they're specifically saying for the tier 2 or 3 cities. But for Asia Pacific, for example, I was launching this huge SUV, and China was the lead market for this one. And China was like, initially they were like, yeah, we want this really macho SUV, off-road, the work, see it climbing mountain, like rocky terrain, driving through rivers and shit like that. And we were like, hell yeah. So we came up with a lot of ideas that were just like that. And Philippines gets on the call and sorry, it's a 7-seater family car. And we're like, what? So in the end, you kind of have, there's a lot of things that you got to whittle down, bring back, and make sure it addresses all the markets that are involved. So that part is actually the most painful part of the process, I would say. It's just trying to find middle ground if you have a lot of markets to address.
Yeah, the best thing about
Yeah.
Asia Pacific advertising is trying to market to Muslims and Chinese people at the same time, right?
Oh yeah. Oh
Oh,
yeah.
it's Year of the Dog again, or Year of the Pig again.
Oh yeah.
Let's do
Like,
something with that.
damn.
Yeah. And then it's like, wait, the Muslims kind of hate dogs, then they really hate pigs. We can't
Oh
have
yeah.
either of those. Yeah. But this year, Year of the Ox. Oh, happy Chinese New Year, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And
Yes.
and
Oh, I
this
almost
is
forgot
my
about that.
year. I'm the ox,
Ah,
so this is my
nice.
year. I'm feeling good about that. How about you? Are you? What do you have any thoughts about Year of the Ox 2021?
All I can say is I just hope it doesn't suck as bad as the last one. But
You mean
that's all I can say.
the last Metal Ox year, or do you
No,
mean
no, no.
last year
Just this last year.
2020? Okay, so not the
Yeah.
last Metal Ox year, whenever that was. You're
Yeah.
like, yeah, in
See, but
1948, that was terrible. God.
yeah. See, this is how Chinese I am. I have no idea whether it's metal ox or water ox or whatever ox. I don't follow these things. So half the time I just go with what people are saying. Happy metal ox. I'm like, yeah, all right.
Yeah,
But yeah, most of the time I'm clueless.
the only reason I know it's the Metal Ox is because I saw a meme about it. Like, so I'm in some group chat on Telegram where some guys like, "Yo, I want to make a meme with a cow, like a heavy metal cow, and it's a metal ox year." And then I'm like, okay, it's a metal ox year. Okay, now I know.
All
But I don't
right.
know what other. Is
I
there
found
like
out
a
from you.
wooden? Is there a wooden ox? You don't know either. You're the wrong person to ask. I should be googling this.
Yeah, it's very much the wrong person to ask.
Okay, and I won't Google it on the air. That would be that wouldn't be very interesting. All right, so advertising. We were just talking about APAC, Asia Pacific advertising. Now you did some advertising for Ford. Kind of funny story because my dad worked for Ford in the APAC
Ah,
region in the marketing department. So what years were you?
no.
Yeah, what years were you working with Ford?
2010 to 2015. No, wait, hang on. For APAC, it was 2010 to 2015.
All right, you probably know my dad then.
Who is he?
Rick Baker. Do you know him?
Oh shit, I know that name.
Yeah. So, anyways, yeah. If you have
I
anything bad
yeah.
to say, don't say it, because he's probably gonna listen. But if you have anything good to say, pile it on. Please
Where was
pile
he
it on.
based though?
Shanghai. He was in Shanghai. I think it was 2010 to 2014. I think it was he was
Oh.
setting up Lincoln in Shanghai.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So
All
he
right.
like before Lincoln launched, he was already retired. So like he left right before they launched.
I see.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I was marginally involved in the launch of Lincoln. I maybe that's where I yeah, seen his name, but I don't think I've ever met him.
Okay, yeah, I've met like a bunch of people who my dad knew through business, like advertising business, because I guess there was an agency in Shanghai at one point, Blue Hive, right?
Hey,
Yeah,
yeah,
and then you were working at Blue
yeah,
Hive, and Blue Hive is
yeah,
a agency under the WPP group or conglomerate or whatever you want to call it, and they
yep,
are an agency that was dedicated to Ford. Is that correct?
that's right. So, yeah, funny story. I was one of the very first members of staff for Blue Hive here. So, yeah, I used to work on Ford China at JWT, so which is another ad agency within the WPP network. And I left the agency for about a year, and then the chief creative officer called me up one day, and he was like, "Hey, we are going to set up an agency here in Shanghai that's going to handle Ford Regional. You've got experience on Ford. Do you want to come back and kind of hit it up?" And I'm like, yeah, all right, sure, why not? So that was how it pretty much started. It was just for the first month, it was just that guy and myself, you know, getting briefs from the US, talking to the clients here. And we just kind of grew from a two-man setup to about 100 odd by the time I left.
I like how I was like, "There's this company called Blue Hive," and you're like, "Yeah, I built it. Yeah, yeah. Hey,
Well, I didn't really build it, but yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I didn't know that. I mean, look, you were introduced to me, and I kind of didn't want to know much about you until we started talking. Then I could kind of, get it out from you on the show, get to know you more.
Sure.
It'll make for better content too, so that's good. But I know you through an ad industry connection, but I didn't know
Yeah.
about that whole Blue Hive history. That's cool. I kind of quickly glanced at your LinkedIn.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's how we
just
met.
to yeah, I was trying to get some. I had to write some questions for show prep. I was like, oh, let me look at the LinkedIn. Maybe I'll get something from that.
Right.
So just to get to those questions, though, let me ask you one of the questions I sent you. Do you have any funny or interesting stories that involve cross cultural communication in the ad industry? You're like,
Let's see
nah,
now.
no, they're pretty straightforward.
Yeah, actually not that many. I mean, apart from because we always have people who are effectively bilingual, so that we would avoid stuff like that. Um, yeah, nothing pops to mind at the moment.
Have
Not
you
at
ever
least not
done
within the ad world.
Have you ever done anything that involved a Chinese company going global in terms of advertising?
Chinese a local company going global?
Yeah.
No, no, because a lot of my clients, a lot of the brands that I worked on were all multinational brands. So like Nike, Ford, Lux, the whole Unilever, and P&G, stuff like that. So I
Yeah,
didn't
these
work on
are
anything global, local.
yeah, these are big names for China advertising at least. Big ad budgets under
Oh yeah,
these brand names. Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean a lot of my stories, that I would respond to with this question involve Chinese companies going global. And I probably shouldn't share a lot of them on the air just because it's, they were clients and I don't want to
right,
damage, their privacy. I don't, anyways, you know what I'm saying. But
true.
there was a lot of funny stories. A lot of them involved racial things. And a lot of them were like, they were ads in Asia or for a market in South Asia, like India or something, or Indonesia or Malaysia, Thailand. And they always wanted to use white people
All
in the
right,
advertising. With any people, they wanted white people. And I had a brand once, a smartphone brand. I'm not going to say what brand it was, and I've worked with quite a few. So if you dig through my experience, you're not going to know which one because there was enough Chinese smartphone brands for you to not know. Anyways, so this Chinese smartphone brand was like, they're looking at this social media post that we made for them, and we used some stock image, and there was a white woman with dark hair with this red background, and she had the phone. It was really stylish and cool.
right.
And they're like, this lady, she looks too Indian. She's like way too Indian. And the funny thing about this brand is their biggest market was India. And this was a white woman with dark hair. So we try to make her whiter. So we make her skin whiter. Now it looks like porcelain. It looks it looks unnatural now. And they're like, ah, still too Indian, way too Indian. So we didn't know what the problem was. So then we changed the background color. Like maybe it's the red background. Maybe that's why the client thinks it's Indian because it's red. It's like some Maharaja thing, you know. So let's change
Right.
it to purple. So we change it to purple, and they're like, ah, much better. This is not Indian anymore. So I have a lot of those kind of stories, like weird racial stuff where it's like Asian people, Chinese people, mainland Chinese people advertising to Indian people using white models and only white models and especially not black models and especially not any other dark skinned model, even though the market they're talking to is dark skinned people. It's bizarre.
It really is. I mean, I do get that as well. Especially if we are even if it's a big multinational brand, and if you're targeting the Chinese customers, and even the first round of ideas that you present, you usually use stock images just to get the idea across. And I have been told explicitly for certain clients, like, do not use non-Chinese people in your stock image. And how painful it is to find Chinese stock images here that don't look campy or just
Yeah,
downright
yeah. If you
weird.
if you want stock images, if you're searching along racial lines, I think there's a lot more white people in there, right? So that your
Yeah,
selection with Asian, or maybe there's quite a few black people. I would assume, but when it comes to Asian or like Indian, East
yeah.
Asian or Indian, I assume there's not that many.
No, yeah, and those that you can find that just look so wrong for what you need. Half the time they're like, and you're like, I can't use that to get the idea out. So, and there's no Asian filter that you could put on
Well,
in
you'd get in trouble
Photoshop.
for that.
So
Even if there was, you'd be like, well, they used the Asian filter. That's not
yes,
fair. You
it's
could have
it's too
employed an
obvious.
Asian model, but you got a white model and put an Asian filter in their face. What's
Yeah,
wrong
so
with
half the
you?
time we had to draw that thing up. So yeah.
Let's just draw the eyes to be a little more Asian. Huh? How about that? They'll never notice. Well, yeah. Not to get too offensive here, but yeah, those are some of the experiences I had, and I think it's some of the brands are a bit different. They've matured a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's a maturity issue for a lot of these brands who are, they're just kind of stepping out of China. They're not used to it. A lot of the people they have in these departments are not too experienced internationally yet,
Yes.
and they end up making some funny decisions as a result. And
Oh yeah. Oh
I got
yeah.
to see all of it at the very beginning of Chinese brands going global. I could write a book with all this crap. There's some funny stuff that happened, but I probably shouldn't do that until I'm retired.
Yeah, that'll be a good idea.
Yeah, my old boss wanted to write a book. And he's like, I'm gonna have to make it fictional though, because I can't like damage any client relationships.
Just draw comics. They're usually the best way out of something like that.
Yeah, like comics that are really vague, but at the same
Oh
time,
yeah.
if you wrote them about somebody and they see them, they know exactly that you wrote it about them.
Oh yeah. And they can't say squat.
All right, so you've been in the ad industry for how many years now?
See. Since 1998. How many years is that now? 23,
Oh, so you got your start
22,
in this.
23.
You got your start in this business in South Africa. Is that what you're saying?
I started in Singapore for
Oh,
one
in
year. So
Singapore.
I was with Ogilvy for 1 year in Singapore. And then I realized that it was a very strange intro. So when I was in design school back in Singapore, and I really didn't even know of advertising as an industry back then. And one of my lecturers was used to be, formerly Ogilvy, and we had to do ads, as part of our uh, tests. And she was like, you write pretty well. Have you considered going into advertising? And I'm like, I've no idea what that entails. Um, and so she kind of gave me a very brief intro into what the world was like. And I thought, okay, I wouldn't mind giving that a try. So after graduation, I landed a gig with Ogilvy. And then I realized, holy shit, yeah, I was just chucked in the deep end. No idea what I was doing because I wasn't even prepared for that world. And after a year, I was like, oh my God, this sucks. Because when you're junior and you've got no mentor, you've got no one telling you how things are done, you're just doing everything at 100%. And within months, I kind of worked myself into hospital. Wound up 3 days with severe gastritis or something like that.
Damn.
And
Stress
yeah,
related ailments.
oh yeah, pretty much. And after a year, I was like, okay, no, I'm done. I'm out. But when I went to South Africa and I started to, this was pre-Google, so I had no idea what agencies were. I couldn't just, type in South African ad agencies and just have this list.
Well,
Yellow
there
pages.
was there was Ask Jeeves back then.
Yeah. That time, I think there was Ask Jeeves and Yahoo was out. I think so.
Lycos. Lycos was
Yeah.
that little dog. Go fetch it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was an
One of those.
exciting time for internet
Oh
search
yes.
engines before Google
Oh
just
yes.
dominated.
Precisely. So, it was pretty. I had to go through, basic searches like that. I had to go through different kinds of directories, and I yeah just started cold calling agencies, and a lot of these were small independent setups. So like King James had been around for just a year or two. The Jupiter Drawing Room also as well. And I had the basically I consider them the most formative years of my career, and I had the best experiences there because it was the first time I joined an agency that I felt that everyone was in it together rather than just being part of a cog in a machine. There were no egos. If we were stumped, people all from even different teams would just kind of jump in and help out, and I really, really liked that about my experiences there, and I did really good work. And it was one of those where if I had an idea or however crazy it was, I wouldn't feel self-conscious about it to talk to my boss or even my partner. There was no, you didn't feel like you had a stupid idea,
And
even though
sorry,
that voice in your head was saying,
which agency was this, or which region?
oh, in Cape Town, Jupiter
In
Drawing Room, King
Jupiter Drawing
James.
Room.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I don't want Ogilvy to get the credit for all these nice words. So Jupiter, say it again.
Jupiter Drawing Room.
That sounds mysterious.
Oh, yeah.
Jupiter Drawing Room. Cool. So
Yeah.
this is ad agency based in Cape Town.
They have got in Cape Town and Johannesburg.
Okay. And now is Cape Town the
So,
advertising capital of South Africa?
well, I think it was a pretty fair split between the two. So I think the independent ones were far better in Cape Town, whereas the 4As, the larger networks the ones were more established in Johannesburg.
Okay.
Because Cape Town
And
was more the artsy, independent kind of place.
all right.
So yeah, the small shops really flourished there.
Okay, that's cool. And can you just, there's probably a lot of people listening who aren't in advertising and they don't know what 4A is. Can you explain, like, what is 4A and how is it different from, some of these smaller shops you talked about in Cape Town, for
So
example?
4As just means a fully accredited agency. It's a full service agency. So you don't have, so if uh, every every service that is required for a successful advertising campaign to be launched can be provided by this agency. So if you're talking about planning, you're talking about media, creatives, stuff like that, the agency would be able to support all those needs. Whereas an independent agency, they're very small usually. It could be anything from two to about 30, 40 people sometimes. And they may not be able to offer that full kind of range of support. So if you're talking about media, we probably would have to go to a external company like Mindshare or one of those others as well. So it usually doesn't matter to me because for the creatives at least, because it's for us it's about the idea how people want, how the companies want to execute them or find ways to work with partners who can. That's not really our call. So it's just about us trying to fight to get the idea out at the end of the day.
All right. So these smaller agencies, oftentimes they specialize in like one thing. But you mentioned Mindshare, this company. That name sounds dystopian to me. It sounds. Have you ever seen this movie called what was it? Bowfinger. Bowfinger. Have you seen this movie?
Oh, I might have. I can't remember. I don't think
Bowfinger.
so.
It's
I mean,
it's
I
from
must
the
have seen the
late
title
'90s.
around. Oh, yes, 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 that one, yes.
Yeah, and there's this company in
Yeah.
this. There's a place where Eddie Murphy gets like therapy, and it's like mind head. That's what it is. And whenever I see Mindshare, I think of this movie and I think of this company, Mindhead. So I don't know. It just sounds creepy to me.
Yeah,
Mindshare.
that it does. Mind share. It it sounds like somewhere you need to go get your head fixed or something.
Yeah, and that's like Bowfinger.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So we talked a bit about the ad industry. Do you have any
Hmm.
like project from this experience that you're really proud of in terms of like creative execution?
Oh yeah. So when I was in, oh god, there are actually quite a few that I enjoyed, but the one that had the most impact in my career was I think this was back in 2006. So when JWT still had Nike, and the this is right before, just when yeah, I think we were going to lose the account or something like that. So it wasn't even my account. So we knew the agency was going to lose it to Wyden and Kennedy that was setting up shop here. And Wyden and Kennedy is basically the incumbent for Nike in North America at least. Yeah. So my boss at that time and myself were thinking, let's just do something great for them. It's going to be the swan song, and and we just took it upon ourselves to come up with a series of posters. And I think we did six of them. So the idea behind it was that, Nike is a brand for runners. Um, and, runners obviously run on roads. And the idea was just to bring that spirit of run free to life. So we worked with different artists. So we had traditional artists, we had digital artists, uh, a whole bunch of graphic designers as well. And the brief was pretty open. So what we said was, you know, use the idea of roads to bring the spirit of Run Free to life. So we actually worked very closely with them, and wound up with this whole series of ads that became the second most awarded ad campaign in the world at that time. Um,
What was the name of
and
the
yeah,
campaign?
Nike Run Free.
Nike Run Free. Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah,
just
I think
pull
that was
that up.
just 2006. They may have other Run Frees as well.
Oh, so they may have been. Oh, and these are shoes. Run
Yeah, just
Free. Well, if I don't.
yeah,
Okay, if I don't
all
find it,
those.
all these. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, all those up there.
Oh, so okay, these are the roads. I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a whole series of them, and I won JWT Shanghai's first Cannes. I think it bagged about 70 odd awards and stuff like that. So it got me ranked as China's top creative for that period of time, number 14 in Asia. Um, and it was a great time. I got to go to Cannes for the first time as well. Uh, it, it was quite funny, yeah, because when they sent me to Cannes, I went with the chief creative officer, the CEO, and this other senior creative. So as soon as we got there, the other creative found his friends, and just I never saw him again for the whole week that we were there. And my boss, he had been to every single con for the past 10 years. He was like, I'm going back to watch football. And my CEO, I think at that time, he lost his phone, threw a fit, didn't want to go out. And so I was left to celebrate on my own. Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
First con, yeah. Wound up getting really shit faced with some guy from Israel and some girl from Poland. Yeah, that's all I remember of it. But it was great fun, because you go there thinking you're the shit, and
Yeah.
then you see all that work all that creative work, up on the wall, and you're like, I am nothing. You compare that to
Yeah.
everything on the wall, you're like, oh my God, I'm a prima donna. It's a very humbling experience. But you do learn a lot. And it's an experience I would really recommend if you can go to Cannes, especially if you're a young creative. I would recommend that, the agency send you there at least once in your career for a really good experience. Because I think the ad industry has suffered in a way that, thanks to Singapore in particular, we kind of started the whole scam ad industry, right?
What is that,
Uh,
the where you create something for the award shows?
yeah, so it's not actually because of a actual brief that the client gave you. You're doing this for solely for awards. And we kind of started that culture, so sorry.
Okay, we have to take
But
a step back. We have to take a step back because we're deep in ad land, and you and I are both deep in ad
yes.
land ourselves, so we know what's going on here. But Can,
Hmm.
I think when it comes to a household name, Can is probably more associated with like independent film. When it comes to Americans, at least, if like people are like, oh yeah,
Right.
Can, oh yeah, I have the Sundance Channel. That's like Can, isn't it? Yeah, but the Cannes Lions, as an advertising and award show, and it's held in France. It's a big
Hmm.
event. All the big industry people are there. A lot of celebrities are there. A lot of creative people, very talented people. And I like your perspective on it too. How you go there and you're kind of thinking like you're the shit, but then you see there's these brilliant people that you're in competition with, and it's really humbling.
Oh yeah.
Granted, maybe they lucked out with a much bigger budget than you, with much more, I don't know, less risk averse clients, like clients who like are
Yeah.
willing to do something crazy, you know, getting some award for that. Now
Oh
now
yeah.
you're talking about this award show culture in the ad industry where if you're in this industry, you're trying to sell a product with an ad, but it seems like a lot of people in the ad industry are chasing an award, chasing creative recognition rather than
Yeah.
sales, leads. Let me get some sales and leads here. That's what the brands want, but the creatives in the industry, the agency guys, I want that Cannes Lion.
Yeah.
So can you talk a bit about that, like the award show dynamic? And you even brought it up already with Singapore, with them starting the trend with chasing the award rather than doing something that's on brief for a company. Can you talk about this whole dynamic a little bit?
Yeah. So, when the agency is given an actual brief from a client, and you're right, it really depends on how open the client is to really creative work, about how open they are to pushing the boundaries. So a lot of times, majority of the times, it's about keeping up with the Joneses. If the competitor has done something, this brand is like, oh, we want to do something like that as well. And there's really not that much room for innovation and creativity. And it suffers because we are in the creative industry, and if we are just going to do stuff that other people have done before, we're not challenged. We just kind of feel like we're dying inside. And I understand the challenge. Like, on the one hand, the clients have got, you know numbers to meet. They've got goals to achieve in terms of sales and stuff like that, and they want something that they know will work for them. At the same time, the agency is like, but we are the experts. We know what could make you stand apart. But you have that really delicate balance of finding something that a client that knows what they want versus what is a guaranteed, will work kind of situation for them. And so because of that, um, agencies have resorted to this idea of coming up with their own briefs, to have their own creative freedom to express themselves in different ways. And that way does not necessarily translate to success for sales. But they do that for recognition. So the Cannes Advertising Awards is basically the equivalent of the Oscars for the ad industry, right? So it's the biggest award show there is, and a lot of people try to aim for that. So we have a lot of different ones, like the NAD, One Show, Spikes. So But the Khan, that is the holy grail for a lot of us.
Yeah. And there's a lot of
Yeah,
smaller. There's a lot more smaller ones that you didn't mention
yeah.
because I've won a few myself, but I never got a canned lion. I never got that one. That's the big one. That's the one that matters. That's the gold
Yeah,
medal. Your
yeah,
little insignificant bronze medal. Otherwise,
yeah. So that, and you can just kind of get stuck there because you have a lot of, for a period of time, a lot of the ads that were submitted to Khan just never saw the light of day. All they had to do was put a poster up somewhere and say, hey, okay, the ad ran, so it qualifies as an official, campaign,
oh
and you
yeah,
can submit it.
we got one impression.
Yeah,
Yeah,
pretty much. We put it up on a wall for 2 seconds, took a picture, and there we go. It was an ad.
yeah, we got one impression. That's all we need. Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
hilarious that there's people in the ad industry, there's agencies who want to get recognition. They want to make a name for themselves. They're like, okay, we got to do all the stuff that the clients want. We got to follow the
Hmm.
rules, stay in the box, make some money. But then we're going to do this really crazy thing. It's not a real ad campaign, but we're going to make it look like it is. And we're going to submit it for the award show. We're going to win. And everybody's going to talk about how creative we are.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
pretty much it. And I mean, they have come down really hard on it over the past few years because of there were quite a few scandals involved in different campaigns that were done.
Yeah. Wasn't there like some refugee thing? Like it's like we are
Yeah,
helping refugee boats in the Mediterranean navigate back, and,
yeah.
and there like was no refugees. I don't remember the story exactly. Do you know?
I can't remember the details of that as well, but apparently it was allegedly a fake app that was supposed, that claimed to be able to track refugee boats as they kind of drifted across the world. Um, so when they real and it was a fantastic idea if it were real. So when they kind of found out that they kind of fudged numbers or they made up data about that stuff, the yeah, the line was stripped from them, and I
Singapore.
think yes, of
Hey.
course it
So
was.
this is the can-winning Gray Singapore app to save refugees. So Gray is the agency, yeah.
Yeah,
Gray, and they're PR agency. A PR.
Grace.
Gray. Are
Yeah,
they
they were an ad agency, but yeah, they were
okay?
an ad agency.
All right. I think maybe I'm thinking of Grayling. My mistake. All
Ah,
right. Oh, this is incredible. So they made some. I mean, I think I don't want to get too much into this. I don't want to read the article on the air, but here's this
right,
article.
right, right.
Can winning Gray Singapore app to save refugees called out as fake. Look into this, people, if you're interested in the grimy world of advertising awards.
Look, I mean, I'm not here to slime, the team that did this. I'm not here to badmouth the
Oh, it was
industry, but
brilliant. That was
it's
brilliant.
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's that's the gritty reality of what we do, and it's unfortunate that sometimes shit like that happens. But it's it just shows how cutthroat it is. On the one hand, you need recognition for creativity. On the other hand, you don't
I
get a
have
lot of
heard some
opportunities.
crazy stories in Asia about the lengths people would go to win award shows. And I'm not going to say any names, not going to say any
Mm,
agencies, but I heard about this guy who was a creative at a big agency who wanted to do an ad campaign that involved animals, like hurt animals, and he was considering breaking some dog's legs or cat's legs and then using that for the campaign so they could win a canned lion. So they're going to abuse some animals so they could do a heartfelt campaign about abused animals so they could win an award for an advertising campaign. Isn't that fucked up? That's like next level dystopian, I think.
Jesus, like maybe go play in a minefield to bring awareness to
Well, that would
like
make
what
a
the
great. That would
fuck?
make an interesting viral video. Why don't we do
Oh
it? We'll
yeah,
get some real exposure with that.
exactly. We've only got one take.
Oh man, no, that's an idea. That's for the 2022 can Lions. We'll get there. We'll get there. All right. Well, jumping to another topic, so we don't get
Yeah,
too dark into the
sure, sure.
the Adland talk, because that's where I'm going with this. How about China? You've been there a long time. You've been
Yes.
in Shanghai. What's your like life like in China? What's your day to day outside of work, leisure? Taking a stroll down the street. What are you doing on the weekends or your off time in Shanghai?
Oh God. So, right now, I do have a lot of off time because I'm about to join Lego. I think I'm allowed to say that. I should be allowed to say that. So I'm about to join Lego. I'm just waiting for the paperwork to come through. So I've had a lot of free time. So, but before that, um, it, my weekends, I used to DJ. So I used to play drum and bass here in Shanghai, in an underground club. So a lot
Wow.
of my weekends were just kind of spent there.
Were you at the
Or
shelter?
just, yeah,
Oh man,
I used to play at the shelter.
nice. That's
Yeah.
now that's a close. It's not open anymore, but the shelter
No, they
Shanghai
shut
is
it down.
legendary.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was literally a bomb shelter. So one way in, one way out, it was a death trap. But so if it caught fire, we were all dead. But it was fantastic because that the people who went there were for the music and not just to be seen. Because everyone looked like a right mess over there. So
Well, it was so dark
that
in
was
there. If you wanted to be
yeah,
seen, it was not the place to go because nobody could see you. It was so dark.
absolutely, yeah. And it was so hot. And then like I would be playing and I'll be dripping sweat on my vinyls, and it was just disgusting.
Oh,
Um,
dude. So you were the
but
real
yeah,
deal. You're playing drum and
yeah,
bass, which is not the most popular genre, especially in Shanghai. It's a cool genre.
oh
I
yeah,
like it. Dude, I used to deliver
yes,
Chinese food in college, in America, at a little Chinese place in Amherst, Massachusetts. And I
all
used to
right.
be the driver, the delivery man for this little place. And I would listen to almost exclusively drum and bass because it was so fast. And I'd be drinking those like Rockstar energy drinks. I'd be so
Oh
hopped up.
bloody
I'd
hell!
be driving around in drum and bass like. It was so great. The time flew by. I'd pick up like $100 in tips in 6 hours. It was a good time.
Holy shit, that's great.
But yeah,
But that's
I
a
mean,
lot.
you were DJing vinyl drum and bass at the
Yeah,
shelter. That's so
yeah.
cool. I'm
I'm
being like a
pretty old school,
fanboy.
but
I'm being like a Shanghai
yeah.
expat fanboy.
But like no club wants me to play now because they've got to rent the equipment just for me, and like we don't know who you are, so you're not worthy of it. So most of the
Oh,
time now
like
I just play for my cat.
they don't have vinyl turntables in house.
Um, not the big clubs they will have, but no big club is going to have drum and bass there. So it's usually the small independent ones, and a lot of these places they use a lot of the DJs use laptops or CDJs or not not vinyls anymore.
Damn. So are you still collecting vinyl records? Like, are you still
Oh
buying
no,
them?
no, no. I made the switch to Serato a couple of years ago. Because I just had too many. I think I got about 300-400 finals, and it becomes a pain in the ass, when you got a 2-3 hour set and you're like, this bag is gonna be fucking heavy because of all the records that you gotta drag. Yeah, in the end I was just like, nah, I'm just gonna go with Serato.
Yeah, you need crates, and then if you're bringing the turntables, that's a lot of stuff to haul, and it's all very breakable too. Like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
not very weatherproof.
No, exactly. And there's always that worry you're gonna leave it in the cab because you're shit faced after the session, and next morning you're like, oh my god, where are my records?
Yeah. So you mentioned you're on a different setup now. What was it? Serranos?
Yes, yeah, Serato.
What is that?
So it's basic. It still uses vinyls, but they are digital time coded vinyls that I can play digital files. It kind of hooks up to my computer, so I still use the turntables. Yeah, so it's basically a software, and you see that blank vinyl over there. So it's just a digital vinyl. So I play it as I would a regular vinyl, but the songs are actually coming from my computer.
Okay. So is there like a physical like turntable thing that's like that
Yeah,
virtualizes it, like a control?
yeah, pretty much.
And
I still use my regular turntables using playing those vinyls. So the key difference is that the music it's just channeling music from my laptop into that.
okay. So the
Yeah.
the record, if you like put your hand on it, like you're gonna scratch or something, that
Yeah.
would help you like stop the music on your laptop,
It behaves
scratch forward,
exactly like
scratch
a,
back.
yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome. That's great.
it is.
Yeah. I remember I
Yeah.
used to do a little DJing stuff. I mean, I had like a little console thing, not vinyl stuff. But I remember like I was super into it, and I was a student in like high school looking at all this DJ equipment. I think I saw some of the early versions of this. There was like an
Right,
actual vinyl turntable thing. It wasn't a CDJ, it was like a proper vinyl thing, but it was digital,
right.
and it was really nice. It was
Yeah.
like
No, it's actually
2004.
really fun. It gives you a lot of flexibility as well. But you like I was saying, clubs need to have the actual turntables, and many of the smaller ones don't have them anymore.
Yeah, that's a shame. And then okay, so
Yeah,
what's
it
the
is.
nightlife like now in Shanghai with COVID? It's been a year. I know Shanghai had a little COVID scare recently, right? They locked down some streets, I heard. What's it looking like over there
Yeah,
now?
they locked down the street like 1 block away from my compound. Um, and I don't really go out that much anymore, so it was quite a surprise. I walked past the street and there was just barricades everywhere. But life is has been pretty much back to normal for months now. At least half a year in Shanghai.
Is
Nightlife
it
is back to normal. You can eat out. You still have to wear a mask for the subway, for the banks, and certain stores, maybe. But other than that, it's almost as if it never really happened.
but how many sets have you played since COVID?
Zero. I've not played out in years. In about 2 years now, I've not
Well,
played
you
out.
should bring things really back to normal and you got to do a set and then COVID will be over.
Yeah, I wish.
But if you were going to do a set again, which venue in Shanghai would you want to do?
I am. I mean, the place that comes closest to the vibe that Shelter provided is probably Dada. Yeah, it's
Dada.
yeah, Dada.
Dada
It's
Club Shanghai. I'm going to just put it in the
yeah.
Google so people can see it. So yeah, it's a grimy nightclub, yeah. Not too big, not too
Oh yeah,
small. Plays a lot of
yeah.
electronic music, a bit of hip hop, right?
Yes. I mean, I did play there once, but the this was oh wait, when was this? About a year ago. No, a year and a half ago. Yeah, about a year and a half ago. So I think it was Fabio, one of the grandfathers of drum and bass. I think
Yeah, I know him.
he was playing. Yeah, he was playing there. So I was supposed to play after him, but the equipment broke down as soon as I touched it. I could only play out of one deck. So I kind of
That's
cleared the
terrible.
club after that. So it was well done.
Yeah, oh, God. That was like the last time you DJ'd?
Yeah, that was the last time I DJed.
You're there with a music industry legend and you have
Yeah.
maybe the worst set of your life because of the equipment
Yes, it
failure?
was the worst set. Yeah, it was the worst set. Like after the second track, one of their decks just kind of gave out,
Well, dude, you have to do
refused to
another
play
set.
anything.
You have to have a good set. That can't be your last
Yeah,
one.
no, it can't. It can't be. So I got to try to find a way to play out again. That was me coming out of semi-retirement and then play out of one deck.
Well, if I was still in Shanghai, I would hire you because I used to do these crazy private parties with some friends. What we started doing, there used to be a Super 8 hotel in Jing'an district. Do you remember Jiaozhou Road and
Yeah,
Xinjia Road, that area in
yeah.
in and there's a little alleyway there and there was a little hot sauce shop there, hot box. You know what I'm talking about? It's not there anymore, but it used to be. Anyways, there
I
was
can't
a
remember.
hotel there, a Super 8 hotel, which is like that grimy, it's like a Motel 6 in America. It's like a low budget
Right,
hotel. But it was kind
right,
of decked out in this Shanghai location. They had these rooms that had like mezzanines in them. Like they had the first floor with the big bed and it looked like a dollhouse. It was all white and ornate, white and gold. And they had a little mezzanine. They had a stairway and it went up and there was like this little balcony thing in the room. So I was
right.
thinking this would be a great party spot. Why don't we get two of these rooms? They're in the same hallway. They're like opposite of each other. We'll get both of them and we'll have a crazy party. And we did that and we invited a lot of people thinking that maybe some won't come. You know, these are WeChat group invites. You know, we're thinking 40% come rate. And by I mean COME. Now, I'm not trying to be dirty here. Now, you get your head out of the gutter now.
Too late.
RSVP rate or something, you know, trying to get a more cultured term here. But anyways,
Right.
too many of them came, and we were like flooding these rooms, and people were overspilling into the hallways. It was so loud.
Oh,
you know,
shit.
I was DJing at one point. I got blackout drunk. It was a Halloween party too, and I was dressed like a Roman soldier. It was a great party. And the hotel kept threatening to call the cops. They're like, well, you guys are so loud. I know what you're up to. There might even be some drug use. We're going to call the cops. And we're like, yeah, whatever. We're too drunk to care. And then apparently the cops, this is 2013. This is like early days. If you, when it comes to the power structure in China, the new power structure in China. It was still a little wilder there. The cops just never showed up. They didn't give a shit. They're like, what? It's too late. It's 2 a.m. You expect me to walk over to the Super 8 and bust these kids? They're having a good time. You want me to mess with them? I'm trying to have a good time here at the police station. I'm trying to play solitaire and have a nap. Once you get fucked, Super 8. So it was... So if I was still having parties in Shanghai like I used to, I would hire you to DJ, and I'd make sure we had the right equipment. We'd arrange all the booze. Thing is, okay, they closed Super 8, and as you know, things got stricter in Shanghai, in China in general, so we started having to rent these private venues. They had all these places in Shanghai, these like little team-building party rooms, where like this small company would deck out all these apartment spaces as party spaces. They'd have karaoke rooms, ball pits like a McDonald's play place, a bar setup, card tables, mahjong tables. They're wild. And you could rent these private spaces for a night for like 1,200 RMB, like $200.
No way.
$200. Yeah, and you have a crazy party, and you arrange the booze. Any other extracurricular activities you want to do, you could make sure they happen. You got a karaoke room right there. It was amazing. We had these wild parties in Shanghai, but I feel like the mood has changed there a bit, and it's not
considerably.
Yeah.
Yeah, they cleaned up so much. I mean, they had raids and stuff like that about just over a year ago, 2 years ago, I think. Massive raids throughout China, and especially in Shanghai, which saw the what was that? Cat hair. Which saw the expulsion of like several hundred foreigners at least, you know, jail time and stuff like that, because they were they just were having this massive crackdown. And
what was it that people were going to jail for usually?
Drugs. Yeah, it was it was mostly weed and cocaine that people went down for, you know. And it was a sad day for the nightlife here. I heard stories. I mean, I hardly went out again at that time, you know. So I heard stories of I can't remember which club. I think it was called LeBron or something like that.
La Baron?
They raided. Yes, La Baron.
Yeah.
Yeah, that shows how much I go out. I don't even know the name.
Well, I think your pronunciation was more like the French. It's like La Baron. Something like that. Right?
Yes, that's the inner French in me. They raided the whole club. I think they sent about 200-300 people to the police station, and were just trying to get people to roll on one another. And some of them got really rowdy. I think several foreigners got really rowdy because they were shit-faced and started to argue with the cops. Never do that with the cops here, because those guys were deported the next day. Didn't even have a chance to pack up their shit. They just had to go back, get their passports. Fuck off.
Yeah. And the thing is, Chinese cops are super nice. They're pretty reasonable to deal with, usually. I've dealt with Chinese cops plenty of times. Never really had a bad experience.
Yeah.
Well, okay, except for like if I was reporting something stolen and they wanted me to come do a police report and they expect me to wait 2 hours to do a police report at the station, and I know they're not going to investigate this crime. A little petty theft at a KTV, they're not investigating that at all. So that's the only problem I have with Chinese cops, is that maybe they're a little lazy. But I've never had any problems with them being abusive or testy, you know?
Yeah.
Like mean American cops. Like I've had American cops tell me they're going to kill me for just being at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Fuck.
Yeah, so it's a little different setup.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember because I ride an electric scooter here, and years ago I was riding in the rain. I wasn't even going that fast, I think I was going about 40, and this little old woman decides we were going in the same direction, and she decided at that time, pitch black, this will be the best time to step out onto the road without looking behind me. So she did, and I couldn't stop in time. I crashed into her, you know, we went sliding across the ground, and she completely flipped out on me. She was like, I hit my head. Why were you going so fast? I'm like, you just fucking stepped out. I could not stop in time. And so she held on to my bike. She called for the police, and the cops came. And he was really patient. He listened to her side of the story. And he was a young guy, so he listened to my side as well. And after a while, and this was the funniest part, he put his hand on my shoulder and said in English, your luck is fucked up.
Dude, and this actually makes me want to ask, like, right away, like, you are Asian looking, Chinese looking, but you're living in China, and you're not
Yeah.
Chinese or not a Chinese national. So
Yeah.
how do people treat you?
Oh, they, at first they will think I mean, I don't look typically Chinese. I get mistaken for Japanese or Korean many times. But they don't treat me very much differently. But they do when they realize I'm from Singapore. Um, a lot of them have this really clean perception of Singapore. They're like, "Oh, Singapore is really great. It's very clean. Do you like it there?" So it's more a matter of curiosity because like I do speak the language a little bit, so they think, yeah, your Mandarin is really good, and I'm like, yeah, you should have met me about 18 years ago. But I don't get treated very much differently. I'm just more of a curiosity to them.
So in that situation with the cops, though, you're communicating in English or Chinese? How is that happening?
I communicated it mostly in Mandarin, certain words peppered in English, so he knew right away, I was not from here. So that's why he took that long pause to kind of gather his thoughts in English. And your luck is fucked up. I'm like, you're supposed to be a cop.
Well, he's a Chinese cop. They're just Chinese cops are just kind of there. They're just like
Yeah,
little moderators
it's
in the city.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's actually quite. I mean, coming from Singapore, especially, you don't argue with the cops. You just have this reverence towards them for no rhyme or reason. And over here, you just see the way the locals kind of deal with the cops. You're like, as though they're yelling at children. So I'm
Yeah.
like, damn, you got massive cojones there.
Well,
But
you do that in
yeah,
America, you get tased. You get like
pretty
these
much.
cops in
If
America.
you're
They're
lucky.
like they're like ready to use the taser. Like, and I know there's a lot of the racial talk with police brutality. At the end of the day, they'll tase anybody. They're these motherfuckers will just go. They'll go after anybody. If you give them a hard time, you give them a reason, they'll use it. They'll use it on you.
Oh, I'm sure. Oh yeah,
So,
they've not been getting really good press.
no, because there's so many videos of it. Why are there so many
Yeah,
videos of this one thing happening over and over again?
I know it's ridiculous. I'm almost afraid to go back there.
Yeah, I'm not anti-cop either. I'm not like an anti-cop guy. But at the end of the day, when I see a cop, I get nervous because I've dealt with some, for one, and then I've seen a lot of videos of people who had much worse experiences than I had.
Oh yeah,
Well, we are about an hour and a half in.
sure.
Um, we could probably
Wow.
we could probably wrap up pretty soon. Is there anything you wanted to
All right.
plug before we go off the air?
No, no. I mean, it has been quite an interesting experience. I've never been on a podcast before, so this has been fun.
Yeah. Well, okay. So
Yeah,
it's like what 1:30 p.m. in China right now.
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
and it's
When I
11:30
when I
at
was
night.
looking at the links that you sent me, I was like, oh my God, I've got to speak for an hour. I don't even know what I can talk about, and I didn't even feel the time go by.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll bring them up to 2 hours, but I didn't want to make it too arduous for you, But I'm drinking sake, so it's very easy for me, and it's like a different time zone for you. Are you drinking now, or what are you doing right now in terms of beverage consumption? Uh-oh, you didn't freeze, did you? Oh my God, he froze. The connection problem. It caught up to us. Roy, are you there? Roy, we miss you already. Well, I don't really want to end the show this way. I think I can keep it going. I mean, I really have to pee as well. I really have to pee, people. I'm considering peeing in this bottle right here, but I'm not quite done with it, as you can see. Are you back? Yes. Thank God. Wait, I can't hear you. I can see you, but I can't hear you.
Oh yeah, sorry. We got cut out for a second.
Yeah, I was just talking about how I have to pee so bad. I'm like considering peeing in this bottle, but I have too much sake to pee in here. But we should wrap up so I can go to the bathroom. Now,
All right,
you don't have anything to plug, but are there any like good movies you've watched recently? A good book you've read? Any other, maybe another creative person that you could promote while we're on the air still?
Oh goodness. Actually, who else can I? Another creative person.
Mm-hmm.
Oh wow.
Well, I don't want to dox.
Klaus already.
Yeah, I don't want to dox your friends. I was thinking more like somebody who's put out a movie or a TV series or a book or something more public.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not right now. But I can't remember the last great book that I've read. Because
have you been watching a bunch of bad movies lately? You're just like, I can't recommend any of these.
Well, I kind of, for some reason, I've gotten into South Korean action films recently. For whatever reason, I had no inclination for these things before, and I just started watching this thing called A Bittersweet Life. So, and it's actually really good because I've always pegged South Korea as they do a lot of these melodramas that my mom actually liked, and when I when I watch movies like The Last Train to Busan, which was a zombie film by South Korea, and I was actually really quite blown away by the level of production, the storytelling, and I've gotten into a lot of South Korean movies lately, and
yeah, man,
I think it's definitely something we should look into.
Yeah, Korea's killing it with popular media, like movies, music. They're killing it these days.
I know. I mean, they've got storytelling down pat, and they don't rely on like massive budgets, like CGI and stuff like that. And
look, the movies are great.
Just really slick.
The movies are great. Those K-pop chicks are so hot. I don't really care about the K-pop boys. I just think that their fans are annoying. Like you go on Twitter and they got all the K-pop fans. They're like the most annoying people in the world. But I don't. Maybe they don't know any better. They're just trying to do their thing. Maybe they're like 14 years old. I don't know. I don't want to blame them too much, but they're annoying. But those K-pop chicks are pretty hot. I got to say that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I have to admit.
Back in China, when I lived there, we had a Xiaomi TV, and we used to have like the app interface of the TV. It's a smart TV, so it's like a TV that can get Netflix, but I'm watching the Xiaomi apps, where I can watch movies or I can watch music videos. And they have the whole K-pop section. So you turn that on, there's some good eye candy. That's all I'm saying. And if you're a woman or a man who likes effeminate young men, you'll love K-pop. You'll love it.
Oh, hell yes.
If you like guys that look like girls, you'll love it.
Yeah, I don't see the appeal in that. I really don't. I don't.
But you like the girls though, like the proper girls.
I would not say no. Yeah.
Are you married?
But yes.
Okay, it's cool though, right? It's cool. We can talk about.
Yeah, no, she doesn't care.
Okay, because she probably likes those K-pop boys, doesn't she? She's probably like looking at the.
Nope, she likes the girls more than the boys.
Good for her. Those boys are way too girly.
Oh yeah.
I was holding back my thoughts. It's kind of weird, isn't it? No. Okay. Anyways. To each their own. You do whatever you want. I'm sorry. I don't want to. And you're about to work at Lego. I don't want to cause problems for you. Anyway, no, do whatever you want. I'm an asshole. Don't listen to me. Never mind. Moving on. All right, man. Well, I think we can wrap it up on that note.
All right. What, you're an asshole? Don't listen to you? Perfect.
We'll wrap it up on that note. But Roy, it's been great chatting with you, and you have some awesome stories. And yeah, it's great, especially for me. Like, I'm in the ad industry too, but like looking at somebody like you have a lot more experience than me, a lot more awards under your belt, and I really look up to you. And yeah, it's really cool. I really appreciate you coming on.
No, it's been a pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on board as well.
Okay, so you don't have to hang up on Zoom, but I'm going to click to this screen. Thanks for watching, and thanks for listening. Goodbye.